Hey, there we go. Thank you so much. And it's quite an introduction. Apparently, I'm just the man for it. So, hey, good morning, guys. How are we doing? Are we awake? Has the coffee hit the brain yet? So maybe hit the bottom of the stomach. As I have hit my 30s, I realised that I was like, oh yeah, I have had coffee this morning. I need to go to the toilet. There you go. That warmed everyone up. So we're going to cover Bitcoin Mining 101, and so what I'm going to try and do is provide you at least a top-level concept for understanding like what it is, why it's important, why you should obviously look at it in terms of understanding the Bitcoin network as a whole, and give you some tools that if you want to look at it to be a miner yourself or to get into mining yourself, some very, very strong concepts that's going to stop you from either buying a silly, kind of miner or falling for, marketing or anything like that. I like to give people all of the maths so they can go away and do it themselves. It's not very mathematical, but they're gonna, I think you'll be able to make a decision on what's good to mine, when it's good to mine, and how much to mine, I think. So that's the goals for today. The other side is there's a lot more mining content through the conference today. So it's designed, even if you're not going to go into mining, at least understand it so that when they talk about something else, you understand, you've got the basic knowledge to be able to understand some of the other speakers and some of the other panelists today. So if we get there, this will be a success. So without further ado, let's get rolling. What is mining? So mining or proof of work is actually the foundation of Bitcoin. It's the foundation of all the blockchain industry. So all of the other stuff that gets called crypto is actually foundationally based off this mining process, because that is how every single Bitcoin in existence was created. So miners use energy. They use in the form of electricity and put through computing power to race to solve the right answer to a mathematical question. So at a very top level, that is what is happening with Bitcoin mining. The mining, simply put, is the process of turning real-world energy, like electrons that exist in these plugs and in power plants and in solar panels, and as you're going to hear later, in methane gas deep inside landfills, and turning that into Bitcoin in cyberspace, in the blockchain, or in the internet. So I often have people ask me who don't know anything about Bitcoin, like, isn't Bitcoin like, just this, like, isn't this unreal thing, or isn't it just made up money, or like, it doesn't have any real value? And it's a very easy one for me as a miner, because I spend all day looking at hardware, looking at electricity, looking at power contracts, and all this kind of stuff. So for me, Bitcoin's made of this very, very real physical stuff. And it's constantly produced by this incredible process called proof of work. So by the constant computational race that begins again every 10 minutes, that's the Bitcoin block, Bitcoin stays secure. And we'll go into a little bit of that in a moment. So it's also decentralized. So mining allows anyone on the planet, if they can win the block, to create new Bitcoins. So unlike a central bank, where you have to be specially elected to a board of governors to print the money, anyone in the Bitcoin network can print the money if you follow the rules and if you win the race. So in doing the printing of the new Bitcoins, or the minting, the Bitcoin miners also have the side effect of keeping that network secure. So PAL protects Bitcoin from regulatory capture as well, because if government was to try and undermine it somehow, miners could just move, because they can do it anywhere in the world. You just need an internet connection. And because it's a fundamentally decentralized process all the way through, it can be performed anywhere in the world with an internet connection. And I think the current survey is about 130 countries have some kind of hash rate, even if it's just a tiny little bit of hash rate. So if you think Bitcoin mining could be banned, it's too late. It's gone. It's already out of the bag. Another thing you're going to come across, SHA-256. Some of you might already be aware of it, if you've had experience of playing around in Bitcoin before. So SHA-256 is the mathematical algorithm behind Bitcoin. So the miners provide security by ensuring that all the signaling on the network and everything that goes on inside the Bitcoin network conforms to SHA-256 as a mathematical standard. And all of the hashing or the guessing that goes on, and we'll talk about hashing next, is done through that mathematical algorithm. So it's like an inside and out security. So by performing larger and larger amounts of this hashing, this guessing in the form of SHA-256, the Bitcoin network becomes statistically impossible to hack. It became impossible very, very quickly and very early in its history. And nowadays, you would need to build another Bitcoin mining network, which is trying to amass an amount of capital and an amount of energy that would be incredibly hard to find. And, there's all these theories about could you do a 51% attack and all of this kind of stuff. And it's like, well, even if you were to get there, it would cost you so much time and money. You should have just mined Bitcoin anyway. so at a certain level, it becomes statistically impossible. I mean, it is statistically, theoretically still a chance, but it becomes pretty redundant pretty quickly. So hashing is what, and I use this word, hashing is the process of guessing a number according to strict mathematical rules. So if you hear hashing, you've got to think guessing. So, guess a number between 1 and 10. You guess 7, you guess 6, you guess 5. Oh, the right answer was 3. That was that gentleman over there. Guess number 3. Hashing, that's a very, very simple algorithm, i.e. guess a number between 1 and 3. Bitcoin SHA-256 is guess a group of numbers on a 256 by 256 grid that conforms to, X, Y, Z, and there's a couple of, cool curves in there. We could go super nerdy into that. But when you hear the word hashing, you just have to think that is the maths being made. That's where it comes in. So a miner has a hash rate. That is, every single piece of mining hardware is able to guess a number of times per second. So when you're comparing mining units, when you're comparing, let's say, mining companies, or you're looking and trying to understand the network hash rate as a whole, it's saying that simply the number of times per second a piece of SHA-256 is being guessed by all the miners. So the hash rate of a miner is directly proportional to the likelihood of a miner winning a block. So as a miner's hash rate increases, its percentage chance of winning any given block increases with it. And it's a perfectly fair statistical game because everyone has to speak the same language. So more hash rate, more chances, more Bitcoin earned. It's a pretty simple equation when you do it back to back. So why proof of work? Because this is a really interesting question. A lot of FUD gets thrown at Bitcoin. Why shouldn't it move to proof of stake so we could, like be more energy efficient, be more green, and there's a lot of bad ideas around that. Well, proof of work is incredibly, incredibly important. Proof of work is what makes Bitcoin unfakeable. Because if you had a way around the proof of work, a way around the amount of time and the amount of energy that miners spend to create Bitcoin, you could potentially have a way of disrupting the immutability of the network. Because once you spend the energy on the Bitcoin network and you follow the rules, it's there forever. The longest chain, the most energy intensive chain on Bitcoin will always be the Bitcoin chain, and that will be there forever as long as there is someone to do the hashing. And the only way to get to it is to follow the rules. And everyone's like, well, couldn't you write a cool program to pretend to cheese the network and pretend you did the work? Well, the problem is then that has to go through a proof of work process, which they would immediately find out you didn't do the work, and then they'd kick you off the network, and people will be able to tell you a much more complicated way of that happening. So the proof of work is literally to say that, hey, the only way you got there is the energy went in and the hashes came out, and that means that really is the real Bitcoin, that really is the real UTXO in your wallet, and that can't go anywhere else. So other consensus mechanisms promote protocol change. So in proof of work systems, participants, i.e. miners and nodes, are never incentivized to undermine the work that's already been done, because that would make the work that they did completely valueless. That would make every coin they ever earned completely, what did you do? Why did you build this huge infrastructure? Why did you sign up to a 20-year power plan? All these other kinds of things. Why did you buy one of the cool immersion, sets downstairs? It literally would make it completely redundant. And so that is actually the only way to ensure immutability through proof of work. See, the moment you begin to play with the protocol and play with the way you're minting the coins, once you break the rules of that network, who's to say that a group of people couldn't get together and then break the rules for your coins and just decide, I don't know, we'll take them out of your wallet? That defeats the whole entire purpose of Bitcoin, of self-custody, of being able to reliably have hard money based on a proof of work mechanism. And so proof of work is the only kind of consensus mechanism that protects that tampering, that ganging up, that deciding that people, can't do things. The other side of proof of work is that Bitcoin's proof of work consensus gives every electron a monetary value. And this is one thing I feel is like super important to understand. Any electron that could be sent down a wire suddenly now has the ability to make revenue in terms of Bitcoin, because you could run it through a chip that produces a SHA-256 hash that contributes to network security, and the network will reward you for obeying the rules. And so one thing that we've only just begun to understand, I think, in the economy is that we can use energy everywhere, anywhere, all at the same time, and we can make revenue out of it. We can build positive businesses based off energy where it's made, not having to ship it halfway across the continent, not having to put it in boats and do weird things to seals. So this crazy thinking that's really transforming a lot of the energy infrastructure, the energy sector at the moment, is getting this idea that, hang on, actually the proof of work is awesome, because all of a sudden we're incentivizing people to generate more energy. And Bitcoin has some very strong incentives, and we'll go into one of them, which is the halving, that Bitcoin incentivizes cheap, abundant, and available energy, which is the definition of a wealthy society. And I won't go too much into, the philosophical side of that, but the more energy we have available as a human race, the more wealthy we are, the more human life is cultivated, and the more ability we have as humans to look after each other, to build positive and progressive societies. So it has positive externalities. All right, let's move on to the next one. So what is the Bitcoin halving? Because who's heard of the halving? Like everyone in the room, I'm sure. So the Bitcoin halving is about, I don't know how many blocks away. I think in weeks it's maybe 3-ish, maybe 4, depends how long a block takes to complete. So it's the way Bitcoin becomes more scarce over time. It halves the new supply of coins. So every 210,000 blocks, or it's approximately 4 years, give or take, some 10-minute patches that might be a bit longer or shorter, the amount of Bitcoin that miners get rewarded gets cut in half. And that has actually been one of the biggest catalysts of Bitcoin's rise in value as a monetary asset, and also one of the biggest drivers of innovation in the mining space and in the energy space, because it forces the thing that we're all going after to become more valuable. So again, I made a mistake here, but it occurs every 210,000 blocks, and each of those periods is called an epoch. So an epoch can be like divided. The block after changes. The rule. Well, it's not the rules change. The rules are that after that level, the amount that we earn gets cut in half, and then it becomes harder. It becomes twice as hard overnight to get the same amount of Bitcoin, or I have to spend twice as much energy getting the same amount of Bitcoin, or et cetera, et cetera. You put those in either directions, or you could say Bitcoin should be twice as valuable for the same amount of energy that goes into it. So it affects the base reward paid to miners for performing this proof of work consensus. So that block reward, that race, whoever wins it, suddenly the prize for winning the race goes down by half. And it really is that simple. Now, there's loads of cool economics and awesome, analysis you can do on top of that, and figure out, is there any opportunities here? What are we going to do after the halving, etc., etc. But ultimately, it really is that simple. Every 4 years, our reward as miners gets cut in half, and that has some awesome stuff and some awesome opportunities attached. Here's a little kind of chart of what it looks like. This is like a logarithmic chart, so I'm not sure if there's a pointer on here, but right at the top we had 50 Bitcoin when we first started, and we're down at like, of all the Bitcoin influence, I think we're in this zone here now, so we're getting cut down from 6.25 down to 3.125 Bitcoin, and you can see there's a lot more halving right down, for the next 100 or 120 years. Right down to the point when the last Bitcoin, the last of the 21 million Bitcoin, will finally be mined. Please don't ask me the question of what happens after that, because hopefully we'll be dead and in heaven by then, or wherever dogs go, So what I'm going to go now is, this is the part of the presentation where I'm going to kind of give you some educational. If you are looking at Bitcoin mining, here's 5 hopefully very easy to remember rules, because I put like an alliteration for you to help you remember them, on how to think about Bitcoin mining, where it might be applicable, and how you might, as a Bitcoiner, may be able to contribute to the network in the form of mining. So hard orange rules is what I've called them. There are 5 of them. Energy is your edge is number 1. If you have some exploitable energy, i.e. the ability to get energy cheaply, to get it at below market rates, to create it yourself, or someone who gets energy in the form of electricity in a way that's unique, then you have the ability to take advantage of Bitcoin mining. The biggest Bitcoin miners in the world all have an energy edge. That's the almost the fundamental play in the industrial scale mining now is these guys are energy companies almost more than they're Bitcoin companies, because that's the key. It's turning electrons into Bitcoin that makes the value happen. So on a small scale, if you think about, do I have rooftop solar at home? I've got X number of kilowatt hours that are going to the grid at, I don't know what the number is these days, 5 cents. If you're at a medium scale, do I have a good hosting service? Someone who maybe has a much larger facility where I can kind of piggyback my miner off their, much larger energy contract. The other side of things is, am I at a much larger scale? Am I generating my own energy? But I've seen some really cool stuff, even down to a micro level. Like a few, like 10 kilowatt levels of like people doing like little mini hydro setups and all this kind of cool stuff. Little furnaces where they're using green stuffs to power a little turbine. So there's some really cool technology, but generating your own energy usually is the preserve of very, very large operations. The more scale you get with energy, the better. So remember that mining is the process of converting energy into Bitcoin. I'm going to keep repeating it because it really is that simple. If you can do that, you're putting less, I'll use Satoshis rather than dollars, but I know we all think in dollars at some level, cents per kilowatt hour. We put less Satoshis into energy and we receive more Satoshis from the block reward, then we have a profitable mining setup. And we're going to do that for as long and for as many days as possible. We have an energy edge, is what we're looking at. Hard orange rule number 2, beware the bear. What do I mean by this? Bitcoin mining is most popular in bull markets when everyone's talking about it, when Michael Saylor's on CNBC every day and all this kind of stuff. But it's where the fiat profitability terms are in their peak. And so the problem is that causes like overinvestment and causes all these like weird market distortions where like mining gets super profitable, so people pay stupid numbers for their hardware. They sign up to not energy edge, power prices. They sign up to these ridiculously high, power contracts. And then the moment comes when, people, when the price comes back down to earth, where in the crypto winters, or as the bear market comes and it eats them alive. And all of a sudden, then you get all these people that say, "Oh, I tried mining once and I lost money," and "Oh, it's not worth it anymore." Blah 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 blah. The crazy thing is, if Bitcoin mining wasn't worth doing, no one would do it, and nor would the 19 out of the 21 largest organizations in the whole crypto space, let alone just Bitcoin, the whole crypto space are Bitcoin miners, 19 out of the top 21. They wouldn't bother. They wouldn't do it if it was unprofitable. So it is if you make your plans correctly. So obviously you've got pricing risk. People are tempted to sign all these expensive stuff. And mining projects are better started in bear markets. And I'll talk about that in point number 4. It's best when you're making a plan, weigh up your bear market case. What's my baseline cost of Bitcoin? What's the minimum level that I can afford to go for? And then build forwards from there, because then you're guaranteed, to be able to not be the one who has to switch off come halving time. You'll be the one who continues through the winter, who ekes out a few sats, and it's that sowing over time that usually, and then all of a sudden it comes, and all of a sudden, wow, you're way up compared to, where your stat was. All right, hard orange rule number 3. Hash rate is a hash race. And it's a pretty simple process. If Bitcoin mining is profitable, people want to do it. Yep, it attracts people if there's a profit opportunity here. So the more people do it, though, the harder Bitcoin mining becomes. Because Bitcoin mining is a static prize. It's a static cake that gets handed out every 10 minutes to the miners. And the more knives there are trying to cut that cake up, the smaller each slice of cake gets. So you have to factor in that this is a profitable endeavor. People are going to want to do it. The hash rate is going to go up. So do you have a plan to expand your mining with the network expansion? Have you got a strategy where maybe you are just trying to make a one piece of hardware play? I'm buying this one bit of hardware. I want to maximize the number of sats. But it's a very clear strategy for you, because a lot of people get into this thinking my income will be passive and stay the same over time. And it won't. It will, the more people will do it, the longer you have great profitability, the more attraction there is in the whole industry. So here you go. Hard orange rule number 4. Timing is tops. And there's always a time where beginning a mining project is optimal. Now, I won't go too deeply into this, but you can take a picture. Also, I think they're going to make some of these notes publicly available for you as well. But there's a little decision matrix here. You've got a high miner price and a high BTC price. I go the danger, be careful, because this is the time when everyone else is thinking the same thing. That's where people ignore the bear market case. Low BTC price, high miner price. It's an unlikely event because usually the two are pretty correlated, but it does happen. Maybe stay away, because it's starting to get really difficult, really hard to make a case for it at that time. Then you've got the low hardware price with a high BTC price. Now, that's ideal, right? You've got lots of profitability. You're not paying much for it. You can actually build a profitable model very quickly. Now, you still got to think about your bear market, but there's still things ready to go. And the best option, in my opinion, is a low BTC price with a low hardware price. I'm a winter bear. I like to think about, when no one else wants to do this thing, where are the opportunities? How can I eke out just a few sats every day after my power bill? Because guess what? My cost of hardware is really low. It makes me think really carefully about, hey, how can I lower my cost of energy? It forces the innovation in the market when things come down in price. So that's just a quick decision-making process at a very top level. You get nerdy with spreadsheets and all this kind of stuff. There's some really cool calculators online. Come see me. I'll give you some direction, point you in the right way. Hard orange pill number 5. Last one is, or hard orange rule number 5. Calculations, not certainties. And I feel this is almost like the way I approach any mining project. Because the only thing I know is today's conditions. I only know the price of Bitcoin today, the network difficulty today, my hardware price today. I might know my energy price for a couple of years, maybe 5 years, but I don't know much more than that. And so ROI figures, or return on investment figures, when they get quoted to you, they're not certain incomes. They're not a passive income, but it's not a government bond we're talking about. It's a Bitcoin miner. And so there's only really I only use them as a current valuation for my mining equipment. So if something has, let's say, 365 days ROI, that's how I think about, that's just valuing my hardware. My hardware isn't going to return 100% ROI. It's just valued today at 100%. So I can make a decision. Is that a good price? Is that a bad price? it's better to understand how profitability is achieved than to buy the most profitable machine today. Now, in most circumstances, the two are pretty closely aligned. But if you understand how you can profitably mine in every Bitcoin epoch, in every Bitcoin price season, then all of a sudden you can make some really clear decisions about when to enter the market and also how to be in it for the long term. Understanding how the movements of the market can allow you to make the right moves at the bottom of the cycle, particularly to position yourself best at the top. So it's the miners that are able to survive that bear, able to get in at the bottom, that make the best for the top. And it's always like that in every cycle. It's the underappreciated parts of the market. They usually receive the most light, and everyone suddenly thinks you're a genius because, like, oh, he bought Bitcoin when it was $400 and all, well, they were just obsessed with something. They wanted to make a project. They wanted to have, they wanted to stay in it, and they believed the thesis that, hang on, these things move in cycles. We understand this now. And all I'd say is quite interesting to watch through this last cycle. This is the first cycle that network hash rate has continued to go up despite bear markets. And that's a huge sign, because that says that miners, at least the very large miners, are absolutely understanding this principle that when the thing is dead is when you really want all the attention. Yeah, 100%. All right, so we've actually come to the end of the presentation side of things. And because they gave us some extra time this year, because apparently this was a super popular and people really enjoyed it, like just understanding the basics, it's really important that we get some feedback and also that you feel like there's space to ask questions. So there's going to be a microphone passed around the room.
We've got time for maybe 1 or 2 questions.
Yeah. I mean, we are going to cut it a little bit.
Keep your answers nice and brief.
No, yeah. So I was going to say, so I'm going to do 30-second questions, so you can't kind of go on with many different questions.
Brilliant.
And I'm going to give a 2-minute answer. Anything more than that, you're going to come downstairs for me.
Okay, we can do 1 or 2. All right, so
Very quick.
Let's go.
Yeah,
there we go.
Fine, thank you, it's brilliant. With the hash rate, you mentioned how high it is, 600 terahash or something last time.
Yeah.
Sorry. Is there space for home mining, and how do we get energy to do that? Like, it's a hard question.
Short answer?
Shorter answer is, if you treat it as a hobby rather than a proper investment, of course there is. Because especially if
Sourcing the energy, you got to have the
energy edge. Realistically, rooftop solar is super cool, because you can have some free energy that you can turn into Bitcoin. In terms of a long scale investment, it gets harder. I think with the Bitcoin network difficulty, it's too hard. If you want to diverge out into other coins, there might be some opportunities, but you have to understand, what you're getting into with that.
Okay. All right. Next question. Here we go.
This is a quick one.
Yeah.
Okay. So look at your quadrant of is it rule 4?
Yeah.
We know where the price is. What about hardware price at the moment? Where we see that?
Easy answer. We're in that bottom quadrant.
Yeah,
Like that.
Still, right?
Yeah. So hardware prices are actually slightly lower than they were in the middle of the bear market. And the reason being is halving fear is kind of gripping the hardware industry at the moment. So it's definitely like, so do with that what you will.
All right, I think we can do 1 more, and
Let's
that's
do
the
one more.
last one. All right. Oh.
No.
Sorry, I just thought.
Can you explain very simply exactly what the machines do, like the mining machines? I'm just a newbie, and I know they do massive amounts of calculations and checking, but could you just explain exactly what it is they do?
Yep, exactly what they do is guess a number in the form of a graph of numbers. So they're randomly guessing a group of numbers and then spitting those numbers out into the network. So that's actually, at a technical level, what's going on there. It's not more complicated than that.
We can do 1 more question. So do you want to ask?
Yeah.
Sorry.
You'll have up.
Okay, cool. There we go.
How do you see the energy companies in Australia getting that buy-in to harvest that energy they have, like stranded gas and flare gas, etc.
I see it happening slowly and then all at once. So I've probably been playing into this now for 4 or 5 years, there'll be a few Bitcoin miners here who have even gone further down the rabbit hole. There's some larger players now starting to build out sites that are working, playing around with the energy market. We're still in the proof of concept stage here in Australia. Then they're not. My experience is they're not super open to just kind of look across at what's going on in America and go, oh wow, it works in America, let's just do it here. They're very slow to change. There's a lot of regulation around our energy network, which it's a good thing, means it's safe and stable, but it's a bad thing in terms of the fact that it gets affected by all these weird distortions with renewables at the moment. So it is happening. I would love to be able to stand here in 12 months' time and say, actually, we built, 2% of the network hash rate based on, stranded gas and things like that. It's starting, and it's an exciting space. So I think some of the top people are beginning to wake up. That's all I can say.
Can you say one more? We
Yeah.
do actually have one more.
Yeah.
Did your question answer?
These are great questions, by the way.
Just wondering whether you're aware of whether or not we have anyone locally in Australia mining on flare gas at the moment, specifically the oil and gas flare gas. I don't mean stranded or waste gas, specifically flare gas. I'm just wondering where the local market is at that, and whether or not we have any local miners that are in that area.
The answer is yes. I know of a few. I can't give specifics because some of them I know are it's like people have told me NDA stuff, just because we talk. It's pretty small at the moment, but there are some exciting plans. So it is definitely happening. I think there's so many awesome plays to it, but look, if there's more that can be done, I mean, it's a growing space, and I think we're soon going to have some, kind of like decent sized projects you can point to and be like, hey, let's do that. Let's not be poor, kind of thing. Let's not make it a cost. Let's make it a revenue thing. So it is starting. I say I can't give you super specifics at the moment, but the general answer is yes. I think the floodgates have just started to open.
Interesting. Okay, thank you.
Is this the real one more?
What's more?
Yeah, thank you. It's just the expected life of the hardware. How long, I've been mining for a while now, but I just don't know when the machine's just going to die.
That's a great question. I mean, do you do soldering? Have you had circuit board experience? What model did you buy? All I was going to say, some hardware is going to last for years. But realistically, I'll give you my broad answer, is most hardware has an effective lifespan of about one epoch. So it might be relevant just before a halving, into that halving period, but it's very rare that hardware lasts 2 halving cycles, purely because we are innovating, we are bringing out new chips, we are fabricating more efficient ways of hashing all the time. And so a miner might survive. You might have to do some very basic repairs on it through that life. But I always say to people, expect 3 to 5 years of fairly good, relevant use for a mining rig. Plan on that. And if you have extra years, like right now, the network hash rate's super high because the price has gone up. And so miners that were completely out of the loop and turned off for a few years because they were irrelevant have come back online for a last hurrah to try and scrape out the last Bitcoin. So 3 to 5 years is my rough answer. If you work on that, I don't think you'll really be disappointed.
This is the day of endless one mores. Okay. We do have one more. I'm just passing the message.
If you put that hardware in immersion tanks, does that increase that longevity?
Yes.
That's the goal.
Look, the more technical answer is your maintenance cost goes down by a factor of 5.
So quick one. Have you have any experience with satellite internets, specifically from Blockstream, and how that impacts or not your mining?
I haven't had any of the satellite internet from Blockstream, but I did know early. We call it SpaceX's one. Starlink, yeah. So early Starlink was a bit iffy. I had some friends who do some African mining, and some mining in the middle of Africa. They had problems with rejected shares, so they just went on to 4G. Hopefully we're gonna try some Starlink if we can today to see, or we want to do some experiments. I have heard it's got a lot better. I know some very large projects that are using Starlink because the latency is the most important thing. If you can get to the pool in under 120 milliseconds, which is a pretty bad internet latency, you are okay. Yeah, you did fairly well. I think that really is one more. Access kit really is the last one.
Yeah, thanks, Dan. That is,
Thank you so much.
That is it. Good luck, Dan.